Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight number 66 with service to Los Angeles and the Brea tar pits. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember, we do not carry parachutes on this flight. And in case of a mid-flight plummet, remember, according to NBC, the human body can, in fact, fall and survive 300-foot falls.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Rich Inman and Max Singer. How you boys doing today?
I'm just trying to think about the absolute worst Sully Sullenberger situation where someone has to land a plane in the La Brea tar pits. Just
does it make like a plop, like a?
Oh God!
It's like kind of like a gack slime sound. That's what it would be.
Yeah, just we're doing a disaster film today, but our only sound effects budget's like a little like FX board.
Well, boys, this week we are doing 911 without the budget. Excuse me, we're doing La Brea, and I cannot wait to dive into it. But Max, beforehand, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We dive a little more into how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and make us want to watch more, and if they could be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes wherever you get podcasts from. Check us out on YouTube to see our smiling faces, and we are days away from the holidays, and all that you need to do to get us a gift is to log on to your parents' phones and iPads and hit the little like, subscribe, follow button. Tell them that there's an emergency update from Apple that has to get installed, and then just hit follow on Apple Podcasts. It means so much to us. You're probably listening to this on a long car ride or a flight home to see them anyways. If you don't want to talk to your family, just zone out and listen to our old episodes. Learn about TV. Don't talk to your family.
TV Pilot's License is now brought to you by Ben Gay and Tube Socks. Ben Gay and Tube Socks. Give them to your folks.
Yeah, if you're in between watching the Gasparilla Bowl and the Duke's Mayo Bowl, why not listen to one of our episodes?
Okay, I do have a quick sports thing here. Apparently, the Citrus Bowl is now being sponsored by Cheez-Its this year, which does mean that Cheez-Its are a fruit, and so I'm getting my servings.
Oh my God.
Got a big bowl of fruit salad to crunch on right now.
Well, Rich, Max, first, thank you for telling folks what we're all about. Rich, what is your question of the week?
All right, so if there's one thing that La Brea is about, it's sinkhole. Big sinkhole.
Big asshole.
Well, I would dare to say this is one of the biggest holes we've covered in.
Is this the first pilot we've done that shows hole?
Hey, times are tough. We're posting hole on the podcast. All right. I would love to know, because this is weirdly on my commute to work where this sinkhole like develops. This is so funny to me. Where do you guys think would be the funniest place for a giant sinkhole to like happen? And I can go first if you guys need a hot second more.
Okay, so I had this idea and I realized it's a little bit, morbid, but stick with me here. Now, when we found out about this question, I didn't want to use the word giant. I just want there to be a sinkhole. And I want it to be in a Chuck E. Cheese ball pit. Because it's...
Imagine someone just like jackknifing into the balls. And
those, you see, or did you guys have a kid zone near where you grew up? Like, where it was just like these ball pits and you see children jump in them. And just imagine, it's a small pit, right? Like, so like you just see them disappear. And then it's like, what happens?
I like it at the end of a slide. I think an end of a slide would be real fun.
Yeah, we had a thing called the Discovery Zone where I grew up in Connecticut. That I feel like I'm picking up what you're putting down here, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Max?
Oh, easy. Any Midwest State Fair.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus. Okay, way more morbid. Jesus.
Yes. I thought I was being bad, and Max just came in with the people's elbow.
Right,
Jeff, I do like your idea, though, of like having it happen at kind of a Chuck E. Cheese ball pit. I mean, they made over $100 million on a $20 million budget with like Five Nights at Freddy's. I think that we could sell your ball pit sinkhole movie to Blumhouse tomorrow and easily make 5 times our budget back.
Rich, what about you?
So I had 2 ideas when I was thinking about this question. Number one, first one's good, but second one's a little funnier. I think both are sporting events. First one, I think, would need to happen at the Masters. I think it'd be very funny to see someone putt and then it just like Looney Tunes out into just like into a massive sinkhole. Second one, and I actually just thought about this right now. I would want to see it at a cornhole tournament where someone just hits the board real hard and then the world swallows everything around them. And yeah, I think that'd be a fun moment for ESPN later.
Oh, so Rich, yours could happen at mine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we came up with the same answer. Cheers.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Also, one last one. Olympics high dive competition would also be low-key hysterical. Well, because who knows if they finished the dive? Who knows if they did it flawlessly?
They do it at it happens at Red Bull Flugtag, the thing where they have to like dive off in cars.
No. It becomes so much more high stakes so quickly.
The first person to ever get injured at Red Bull Flugtag, sad.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for that question of the week. Let's dive into La Brea with a quick synopsis. A massive sinkhole opens up in the middle of Los Angeles, separating a family between 2 worlds. The mother and son fall into a primeval land, while the father and daughter are left above to solve this mystery. Yep, that's it. That's I think that does a pretty decent job based off of what we watched. But Max, I feel like there's more that went into this.
Oh, no, not really.
Tell us about how CGI works, Max.
So today we're talking about the pilot of La Brea titled Pilot, which aired on September 28th, 2021 on NBC, 2 weeks in a row at NBC. Lucky you, the listeners. And we're going to be talking about TV writer.
I'm back, motherfucker.
We're talking about TV writer and show creator David Applebaum today. So Applebaum graduates from Georgetown University in 2003, where he was a psychology major, but really is inspired by his time in the college film club, where he begins writing and filming various shorts. Post-college, he gets his first Hollywood opportunity as a PA on The OC for season 2, and from there moves on to become a writer's assistant on the James Woods starring Shark, beginning his run working on procedurals at CBS. Applebaum really begins to cut his teeth in the 2010s. He starts off as a writer's assistant on The Mentalist, becoming a writer and later a writer-producer on that show for 4 seasons, before moving on to NCIS New Orleans, as well as Wisdom of the Crowd, before he switches over to NBC as a writer-producer on 2019's The Enemy Within. So La Brea is Applebaum's first solo show and the first script he sold on his own. When discussing the creation behind this show, Applebaum says it started off with a visual, the idea of a giant sinkhole opening up in the middle of Los Angeles, and just thinking of the high-stakes opening a show like that would create. So he starts with this image and then works out from there to figure out what exactly the story behind it would be. La Brea gets ordered to film a pilot in January of 2020, shoots 5 days in Vancouver in March when they were put on a 2-week hiatus. Quick note, it was not a 2-week hiatus.
How long was it? What happened?
NBC, even without a film pilot, commits to a 10-episode order in January of 2021. The filming finally resumes in May of 2021. And much like the show, they flipped it upside down to Melbourne, Australia, where a 3-week pilot shoot commences.
Crikey.
The pilot was filmed by director Thor Freudenthal, who's best known for helming 2009's Hotel for Dogs, but whose work can also be seen on Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters, and TV credits including Arrow, The Tick, and Carnival Row. And that takes us to today's episode and the intersection of Wilshire and Fairfax. Which pisses me off because the show is called La Brea. I'm sorry.
Look,
Before we
it's
dive
about
in,
the tar pits.
we gotta talk a little brief bit of LA geography here because
because this is why users tune in to hear.
Yes.
Listen,
Open
I wasn't
your
here
maps.
for Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. I got 2 weeks of LA geography to get off my chest. This is such a stupid thing. But the first shot we see is the Peterson Auto Museum, that big
Hell yeah.
red and white
Yeah,
swirly museum.
it's gorgeous.
Honestly, the Peterson rules. It's super fun. Go check it out. It's a great time. Lightning McQueen is there.
Oh hell yeah! I'm going there right now.
It's on the intersection of Wilshire and Fairfax, and then it's like everything we're seeing over there, like the La Brea tar pits and all that stuff, is around that intersection. I used to go to an LA Fitness over there that had all these food trucks lined up in front of it, which was always really tempting when I was like leaving the gym and going to the gym. But it's not La Brea. Just
Yes, it's not La Brea the street.
No, yes, I know it's the La Brea tar pits. I'm aware it's the tar pits, but it's just like
Okay, so
pisses me
Max,
off.
What do you wanted to call it? Mid Wilshire?
Exactly.
Yes, just call it Mid Wilshire. Just call it Mid Wilshire. It's a great name. It rolls off the tongue. Mid Wilshire.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, and I'm going to implore our audience to do this as well. If you have a better name for La Brea that won't upset Max, put it in the comments or tweet at Max. We'll give his Twitter. And I just want Max's replies on Twitter/X to just be random places in LA. Just be like, yeah, we're going to call it LA Taco Stand because that's a better name for it.
I would watch every episode of that, Jeff.
We're calling it the LACMA parking lot.
Oh my
We're calling it the Miracle Mile.
Great name. Miracle Mile. I would watch.
No, it's bad. That's a bad name for what the show is.
Embrace it. Embrace it, Rich. You're a good writer. Embrace it.
So this show, let's just dive in, right? Let's dive in as if this is magical.
Don't dive into it. Don't dive into it. No. You don't know where you go.
We are diving in like it's a magical pit. And we are diving in like the mom character, just, letting go of the hand. We'll get to that. But let's talk about this opening scene, because this scene opens and wants you to know more than anything in the world that we are at the crossroads where Max is
Wilshire and Fairfax.
I don't think there's a crossroads there. I think the crossroads is on La Brea, actually.
So, sure, why not?
That's a thrift store joke for those who live in Los Angeles.
So I think this is the show that has gotten us the name of the show fastest, because we see the La Brea Tar Pit sign very quickly, and we are brought in on let's call them our main family, our first family, if you will, of a mom and her 2 children going to school.
Who shall remain nameless.
Yes, exactly. If you want names, and if you thought I was upset listening and watching this show, boy, I can't even get started. Max, as a person who writes, how upset were you hearing some of the dialogue in the beginning of the show?
I was really upset when the kids ask mom if she wants to move back to San Bernardino and give their dad another chance. No kid would voluntarily move back to San Bernardino when they're in Los Angeles. They absolutely wouldn't do that. Most egregious part, though, and I know this is not the screenwriter's fault, this is a music supervisor choice. We opened the show with the band Imagine Dragons, and if you're trying to get me to watch your pilot, don't do that.
Yeah, that's probably a fair compromise there. I mean, okay, so this opening scene is just, I don't care about any of these people yet. This is like, they have not established, I realize talking about traffic is an LA staple. We'll never not do that. We're from LA. We're going to talk about the traffic. They exposition dump a couple things here. Mom and dad are divorced. Kids trying to get into college, and then they really ham-fistedly expose the disability that the daughter has.
Exactly.
Which
that
is
the daughter has a prosthetic leg, which seems like
that could have been a show don't tell moment.
Yeah, so I will just say, to the credit there, that actress, Zira Gorecki, who plays the daughter, Izzy Harris, I know that 'cause I'm looking at IMDb right now. She actually did lose the lower part of her left leg in a lumbar accident when she was 13. So I think it's just an example of like we cast an actress and we're just gonna put a thing in there because like this is who they are.
Yeah,
I did have to look up to make sure that they didn't just like put
they didn't do the thing
leg on a person. Yeah.
Well, we'll actually talk about that.
I'm watching Our Flag Means Death. They can do that. That's fine.
This show actually does a really good job, and we'll talk about it later, about diversity, equity, and inclusion of all types. They might have received an award for said thing. Who knows until we reach the history portion of this podcast. But, Rich, I think that you're hitting the nail on the head that as soon as this dog starts barking wildly and we start seeing the rumbling on the ground,
bubbling of the tar pit,
the bubbling of a tar pit, yeah, that it seems very unearned that we get this gigantic, life-changing, landscape-changing event. But first, before we talk about literally, I said out loud, and as a non-LA resident, oh, it's the big one, right? Like, oh, this is the gigantic earthquake that is going to ruin California. Because not knowing this show, I was like, oh, that's what this is.
And did you also get it confused with the movie with The Rock in it? Because that's what I got it confused with. Because the movie with The Rock is about the San Andreas fault opening up. And that is about the big one. So I'm like, oh, this is also definitely about this. Nope.
We have to stop naming media products after things that only LA residents know. Because it's really getting
special,
upsetting.
Jeff. We're very special, and people can only see so far out of their office windows.
I guess I need to say this really, really quick, Jeff, because I was watching this, and obviously, so there's the big earthquake, the giant CGI earthquake, where that traffic cop falls through the cracks.
Oh my God, thank you.
In a comic fashion. But I'm looking at the proximity of this sinkhole, and I lived for a year and a half in an apartment building across from where this sinkhole opens up. And in that moment, I thought I could have died. I was watching this pilot and thought that could have been me. And I saw myself and I felt scared. And then I remembered it was a CGI sinkhole and I got back to reality.
So
thank God you moved to Los Feliz. Otherwise, you would have been way down in that underworld.
Me living in Los Feliz now, I'm like, earthquake on Twitter?
So, Max, I'm really glad you brought up the music
it's just
that
a
was
big
used.
Truck.
I'm glad you guys brought up the music that was used in this show, because the way that I saw them shooting this gigantic CGI earthquake pit, whatever you want to call it.
Earthquake.
Would it have been better if they just had Yakety Sack
Laird
playing behind it and just doing like and just seeing people drop into the hole one after the other?
Look,
because
could that have been the first 5 minutes of that, and I would have paid like exhausting amounts of attention to it? Sure, but I don't think that makes for good TV.
Oh no, I think that makes for great TV, because just watching this scene, like, just for the audience, you can find this show. If you want to watch it before you listen to us talk about it, you can find it on Peacock. But I genuinely, watching people fall into a pit with the idea of very few people run, right? Like the instant reaction of pit, I need to run away from, came to very few people. It almost seemed like people were diving into the pit. And then we see our family get split up, quote unquote, right? The son falls into the pit after getting hit or helping someone. I forget which one it was. And then
it was both. He helped a little girl stand up and then proceeded to get absolutely trucked by some dude.
and then we see our main female character who, should I just refer to them as that because we never learn their name? Yes.
Her name is Mom.
Her name, we find Mom, aka Eve Harris, fall into the pit as well, but not after her daughter tries to save her, only to say, let go. Which then, I'm gonna just bring this up. if you fall into a pit, and I got in a debate about this with some friends, you are going to have a heart attack before you land. You are. That's why most people who fall from these buildings and stuff like that, you're going to most likely have a heart attack. That's what's going to kill you, as opposed to the fall itself. Because you are imminently seeing your death happen in front of you. It's shock.
That honestly sounds pretty nice. To be,
sure.
Yeah, that's actually kind of reassuring that I would die on the way down before I go kasplat.
But we see Eve almost turn. She is facing this hole where there's a light coming out of it. What's the light? And she almost seems it's the light. I'm going to heaven. Okay, cool. And she just gives up. And it's just no, I'm screaming the entire way down. I am having my last words in this moment.
What bums me out here, though, is after this, when we get our title card, we just get a 2-second title card that says La Brea. I needed a batshit opening credits sequence here.
Oh, 100%.
So badly. And I don't get it. And I feel
God.
robbed. And it's you have this show that is an insane premise. It opened up on calamity and a giant CGI sinkhole, and all you can give us is just a 2-second title card that says La Brea. I need so much more wackiness here. Rich, go ahead.
I know how to fix it. We take the Mad Men intro where it's just the people falling for 45 seconds. and then it's La Brea.
That with yakety sax, La Brea.
Stop trying to make yakety sax happen.
No, we are making it happen. There's so many other places I have yakety sax in my notes. I can't wait.
Wait, tune in next week when we cover the Benny Hill pilot.
So, this is when I sort of joked about it at the beginning, but after we get this title sequence, we see this ridiculous earthquake almost sequence happen. I literally have in my notes, I am home. This is 911, except worse music, worse acting, worse writing, and much less attractive people. I'm digging in right now. And this then brings us to our other lead, we'll call them. We meet the deadbeat dad that we've been talking about this entire time, but he's at an Air Force base trying to get a job. How could he be a deadbeat if he's in the military?
I love the cuts of a guy trying to, quote, get his way back into the Air Force. Can you do that? If you get decommissioned, and spoiler alert, the dad had a plane crash in the Mojave Desert, and he's having erratic behavior, and he's seeing these visions. So he got decommissioned from the Air Force, and now he's just trying to, quote, get his way back in. I don't think it works that way. I think they make you go fly for Spirit if that happens to you.
I was fully expecting them to give him a job and just be you can work janitor here, right? We'll give you that, and you can not work your way up, but we'll give you something to help.
Yeah, it's like the other guy's movie. They just put you on a desk job at the Air Force. You're sorting papers. You have a crash and you're seeing visions. All right, we're putting you in accounting.
But we see he also finds out about this incident, and he also gets I think he got a phone call or something that sort of notified him of hey, come and find your daughter because shit just went
And
wacky.
then he gets from El Segundo to mid-Wilshire the fastest that anyone has ever in Los Angeles, let alone during a National Guard state of emergency.
Max, it's only 6 miles. How long could it possibly take?
Do you have a 3-season arc?
we also get hints of other shit that's going wrong, right? Seems like there might be a drinking problem that we reference to later because he's drinking in his car before he has the interview. We get that.
I don't know. It sounds like a job interview to me.
Yeah, I absolutely love the taking a quick swig from a flask and looking at a picture of your estranged family that old chestnut. That's an audition. That's an audition reel waiting to happen.
The other thing that sort of cracked me up is, so we get this vision, right, of him seeing something, but he gets to the site, he reunites with his daughter, and then we start to see these prehistoric animals start coming from the pit. We find out later that they are dinosaurs. Spoiler alert.
Dinosaur birds. They're flying out. There's too many birds. There's just too many birds flying around.
And there's a moment where I was just like, if he's the only one seeing these, this becomes
I thought that too.
This is such a more interesting pilot.
I thought he was the only one seeing the hundreds of birds flying out of the hole
so sick.
Whoever is directing all of these extras did not be like, there are giant prehistoric birds coming out of
the guy who directed this did Hotel for Dogs, not Hotel for Birds.
Oh my god.
And I do want to say too, there's a moment where they're tending to Izzy is the daughter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one ambulance tending to Izzy, and no one else is getting treatment at all. It's just a massive, like, hundreds of thousands of people were affected by this sinkhole. There's one person getting treated in this ambulance. I don't know if extras are hard to find in Australia, but they certainly were that day.
So from here, we cut to Eve, or Mom. Let's just call her Mom. Mom wakes up, and she's in this grassy field, surrounded by nothing. It's just green. She sees that glowing light that she saw at the bottom of our
the Northern Lights.
Yeah, sure, the Northern Lights. She lands
Aurora
in the middle
Borealis.
of Minnesota. She is in Iceland.
Located entirely in Fairfax and Wilshire.
But from here, we start to see this, like, everyone sort of, finding their way, because there's this gigantic smoking area in the middle of this new mysterious place that we found.
You can't smoke anywhere in LA anymore.
We'll just call it the Land of the Lost for now.
Yeah, sure.
Hole.
There's not.
Just call it Hole.
But, like, we meet a few characters along the way. There's just this random dude with a gun, which is terrifying. And then we have a reuniting of her son that she thought was lost, Josh. That was a name that we did get. Is magically unharmed. And not for long, but he's unharmed right now. And we start to see some of the people that we saw on the street getting back together and reuniting.
I'm obsessed with the trope of when people are in, like, obviously not their own universe, and they have to check their cell phone to see if they have service.
Oh, that was so goddamn funny. Why did they do that? They all knew they weren't on Earth.
This show does something that I absolutely love to hate, which is the idea that your problems, like your small everyday problems, still need to be problems.
Thank you.
Where you are. So, like, just as a couple of examples. One was, we find out we have our human Pokedex for this show, which is, there is a man who was a Navy SEAL and also a surgeon. He is our Swiss Army knife. He is the most valuable person here. But also,
so we have to vote him off the island.
Yeah, we have to. He has to go. But also,
that's a beautiful throwback to the Survivor episode. I love that.
Do we think that, like, Rich, we sort of talked about and we joked about when this show was made, right? And they had to take a break. And I can't help to think that the events of 2020 happened to influence how we wrote the female cop character in this show as being somewhat of a shady human being who had no idea how to deal with, let's just say, panicking, stress, or being in a heightened circumstance.
2020 is when we all learned that cops are not to be trusted. And before that, pretty clean track record, I would say, especially in the city of Los Angeles. We're pretty famously, nothing bad has ever happened with the police in Los Angeles. I just want to go back to your point on the on like how much people are unaffected by being in this alternate
by falling
universe
through like 1,000-foot hole and then surviving.
No one is panicking. No one's panicking. The kid that's high is laughing like crazy. Okay, so the mom wakes up in this parallel universe, basically. A beautiful camera moment of them going upside down to right side up to simulate that she was in some sort of upside
in Australia.
Down in Australia. my god. No one seems that concerned. No one's really freaking out. I don't know if it's like an acting choice that they all had to make, but it is very much like, oh, hey, we're all alive. That's pretty cool. Let me see how things. I'm gonna keep telling people that I'm a cop, despite surviving in a, I don't know, just this like sci-fi horror thing.
So just question for the group here. So as we start to uncover what's going on, the team starts to come together to, create shelter and safety and get to know one another. We start to see various objects that people are finding in this parallel universe.
Like one-third of the Peterson Auto Museum.
Yeah, we see a third of the Peterson. We see some street signs, but more importantly, we see protein bars. We see that someone has a loaded gun. We see a flare gun later on, and never explained again, we see a trunk full of heroin. So my question to you guys, and to those at home, we don't get any further into the heroin than that. They literally just close the trunk and move on.
There's a drug dealer?
In general, like the rest of the series?
Oh, I don't know,
knows?
dude.
Oh, okay, damn. I'm like, okay, because
we only care about the fucking pilot. We've done this 64 times.
I have a question for the group. So your car, as it is right now, falls into the sinkhole. What do you have in there that could help the group survive?
So many receipts.
What is in your backseat and trunk of your car right now?
I have a bunch of baseball bats. Tons. I have a ton of baseball equipment in there.
Rich has baseball bats. So if you live in Minnesota, you're supposed to almost have if you crash into a snowbank kit in your car.
Yes.
So like I have water, snacks, extra blankets, all those sorts of things that you would probably want very much in this situation. Max, I'm curious, what do you have?
Yeah, if you had asked me this question like a week and a half ago, I would have said all of my Christmas ornaments, but those are now upstairs in my apartment. I've got a lot of bags of clothing that I've been meaning to donate for a couple of months now that have just been sitting in my trunk. I've got an ice scraper that I just never took out of my car when I moved to LA from Indiana. That's going on close to a decade now. I don't know why I need that ice scraper. What else is in there right now? I got some like scripts that I've been meaning to like throw out from things, but they're just like sitting in my trunk for some reason still. I got an air pressure checker. Do
you drive a file cabinet to work? What the hell is going on?
Max, right now it sounds like you got a lot of stuff for kindling for fire. Which is
I got a lot of clothing and I got a lot of Kindle, which is really good. Rich has got weapons, which is going to help. Jeff, your survival kit's definitely come in handy. I think we're all doing better than Heroin Guy.
Yeah.
Heroin Guy has a way out.
And a means of income.
So when it came to seeing this scene of all of these people, one, there's not nearly enough dead bodies. Like, can we all agree there's got to be that we see one person who it appears is underneath a car, and that's the only reference to like dead body. We also find there's someone who's dead in their car.
Yeah.
But like I would say there's probably where is everyone? We were at a busy intersection.
Here's the
and
problem.
Two, where's every dead person?
It's not a walkable city, Jeff. there were zero pedestrians. The only people you saw that were dying were the people taking selfies inside the lamps at LACMA. Those are the only people who perished during this.
And those same people are now going to start taking selfies in front of that giant poppy field we passed in the Upside Down.
Also, maybe like the people inside the LA Fitness when that happened.
So from here, we start to see people's instincts come out to play, right? We talked about the cop. Sure, that tracks. But then we have our first, you're in this mysterious land, our first interaction with the land itself, with these gigantic wolves start attacking people. One guy straight up just gets murdered by a wolf.
Oh, real fast.
Yeah, that was quick. We're on NBC. We can't really show much, but we want you to know he's dead.
Since we're talking about survival stuff, Jeff, and this is ultimately since Rachel has identified that Jeff would be the one of us that survives on Survivor, why do you stop fighting when you make the first jab at the wolf? Because he didn't do any more. Then he was like, all right, I'm going to try this out. And then immediately gets his throat eaten or whatever.
So, Rich, great question.
Stay on the offensive.
My guy definitely took one self-defense course, and that was all he had. And he was like, yeah, if you bop them once, they'll leave you alone.
Most things are sharks.
He shook a big can of pennies at it.
But this attack ultimately proves to be pretty crucial because our son character, whose name is so unmemorable, Josh, he got injured. He got bit, and I instantly was like, "Oh, cool! So we get a death."
Let's just talk about how awful Josh's last 30 minutes have been. He watched half of his family including himself, get swallowed up into a pit into the underworld. He wakes up. Somehow his mom is alive. There's a bunch of dead people around him. And then when he starts to get his bearings, he gets attacked by a giant wolf.
Yeah, but at least he's not in San Bernardino.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You're right. I'd rather be eaten by a wolf than alive in San Bernardino.
Also, we get rid of the wolf problem because our mysterious gunman shoots one wolf, and then all the other wolves are like, "Oh." So, Rich, to answer your question, have a gun and shoot the biggest wolf, and then
Jeff,
you get rid of all the rest of the wolves.
That was a fantastic impression of a pack of wolves you just did.
Oh God!
Oh my God!
Yeah, if there's one thing to take away from this podcast is that you should constantly carry around a gun in case a giant sinkhole into the underworld happens.
Yeah.
Also, another unrealistic thing: the British guy has a gun. Come on, the British guy, he has the gun.
Yeah, he would have a knife.
British guy had the gun. He'd have to be like charging the gunpowder into it.
He waits till he sees the whites in their eyes. You know how it goes.
Hold.
So while this chaos is happening, we have in modern times LA, the dad Gavin trying to
modern times LA closed during COVID.
We have the dad trying to convince the military that, hey, I know what's happening. I'm having visions. Any scene that we see the government or the military involved, I'm just like, once again, Yakety Sax needs to be behind each and every moment of this because it's just like comical like mayhem and just nonsense.
This show just leads into so many tropes that we've seen before. Like the government in the tent being like, they know more. They actually know what happened in the Mojave, and they're seeing similarities to the thing that the dad's talking about to give you the inkling he's not crazy. There's just so many things that we've seen a million times before in sci-fi and disaster shows that we're doing here that they all just pile on top of each other. And it's like, we get it. The government's not actually the good guys.
Yeah. Also, like, I feel like too many reveals in this like particular moment too. The premonitions thing, like the dad being able to see visions, like I feel like they could have waited to show that. They're sending a drone down there. They're sending a drone to go check out what's at the bottom of this hole. They're essentially saying, you know, this is a body recovery mission. It's not a rescue mission. And the premonitions thing just feels like it was like one thing too many for me. I could keep the wolves and the carb heroin, but once the dad started having like these otherworldly experiences, I was like, okay, this is starting to feel too much like Lost. And then as soon as I thought that, they referenced it Lost in the episode.
Yeah, the stoner guy who's like, maybe we're in an episode of Lost. The groan, the from me. Don't give away the game. Like, don't say that. Like, don't say the thing. Like, it's so heavy-handed.
So we haven't done Lost yet, but famously in the Lost pilot, there is a moment
Don't say it!
I will just say, when the iPod was when his iPhone was pulled out, I fully expected him to run out of battery and be like, oh, well, damn. You know, like, I expected them to use
Or
a
just
joke.
to be smashed.
Yeah. So, like, just as far as some notes that happen in the rest of this, we do end up finding this ambulance that has the supplies because we're trying to save Josh. And then we find out that, oh my goodness, the hills that are on the Hollywood ambulance are also matching the hills that are out in the landscape that we're currently in. How mysterious.
It's the hills from MTV's The Hills.
And then our guy Josh uses one of his visions to find a rock. I don't know how he knows where that rock is, to then be able to find his wife, ex-wife, sure, whatever, her missing ring that she had on as a chain around her neck. And it's
Which is what you do when you separate from your husband.
Yeah. It's
he carried
all
around
connected.
for quite a while. Yeah, they like, it's like, and I'd hate using this phrase too much, but I'm bad at synonyms, but it is also very ham-fisted in the sense that like, oh, here's a couple smattering of clues to just try to figure out where you are. And like, we see that like handprint on a rock, or like a paw print on a rock when she wakes up in the underworld and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just like, they very visibly show the ring coming off and stuff like that. It's just like, it's just a little too obvious that they're like, here's the breadcrumbs we're leaving here. Like, I think this is what made it feel too much like Lost, because the Lost episodes, I haven't watched too much of it, but the clues are extremely heavy-handed. They're very like, here it is. Here's this mysterious writing. Here's this animal that is not supposed to be here. This is the clue. You absolute idiot. Go blog about it. Go blog about your theories.
So that really is our pilot, although we're left on a cliffhanger that we see a saber-toothed tiger. So that's pretty cool.
I'll tell you what, I didn't see it because this part was way too fucking dark. Why did they shoot this part so dark? Also, I want to say too, there is, speaking of the darkness, several moments in this underworld, they're like, it's about to get dark soon. How do you know that? What's the sun? Where do you know you have a sun in this underworld?
But yeah, to Jeff's point, we kind of wrap it up with like three revelations, like with the dad and the daughter, that wherever the mom and everyone's gone to is somehow connected to today. There's a connection between the two. With the government, they confirm that the birds that were flying out are actually an extinct dinosaur species. And then below ground, they get chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Another question for y'all. What TV show should end with the main cast getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger? Go.
There's only one correct answer, but I want everyone's worst answer to this question.
The correct answer is the Flintstones.
Correct.
Yeah.
But what's the worst answer to this question?
The Golden Girls.
Oh my God, Rich, that's a massacre.
Just wigs everywhere.
It's America's home. It's America's funniest home videos for sure. That's the answer.
But yeah, that's kind of our pilot until we get the only thing I've ever seen only time I've ever seen this on a primetime show. We get a huge this season on montage from a primetime drama, which I don't think I've ever seen before.
Now do we know if that aired like live when this episode came out, or is it just for streaming because they know people are going to binge watch it?
I think that this was probably when it came out, right? This is definitely one of those like, okay, we're going to talk about viewership for this show, but this was definitely one of those like, oh, we got you. So now like does everyone survive? Does the guy with the gun survive? Like, let's hope you're really emotionally connected with this man who almost killed himself.
I don't know if this was like from the live showing or just from like the streaming, but yeah, the questions of where are they? When are they? Like, listen, we know that we have concocted an absolute bonkers premise, and please please keep watching. Here's everything that's going to happen. Here's everything you need to know. We need you to come back, please.
So that actually brings me to a great part and something I'm really excited about asking both of you. Were there any things that you loved about this pilot that
Hell yeah,
we didn't
dude,
discuss?
trunk full of heroin, baby.
Oh my god.
There's no way you could have beaten a trunk full of heroin as a surprise in this show.
Max, what about you?
Okay, so I love that we. Okay, how do I phrase this? People think that technology makes plot holes easier to explain, but actually explaining it sounds so convoluted and complicated that it completely takes me out of it. So when they find the dad in the woods by Big Rock, we're just going to call it Big Rock, and the daughter goes, "You weren't answering your phone, so I tracked you on Find My Friends." And to the writer, he was like, yeah, this is like a real quick way to tie up this loophole.
Yep.
But it actually just makes it so much more complicated to me. It's like tech does not make things easier. Tech just makes you have to explain it so much more.
Yeah.
We just talked about this in the Studio 60 episode. Do you know the theory that like every single episode of Seinfeld wouldn't have happened if someone had a cell phone?
Yeah.
Like literally you can't just Deus Ex Machina everything with a cell phone. It's it is, we live very comfortable and comfortable lives with cell phones right now, but I do a little bit more, I would say.
Yeah, and for me, I am a very large fan of the concept that our government actually supports our veterans after they've been let go of their military service. But
hey, it's sci-fi.
This is a sci-fi show. Thank you, Rich. So one could only fucking hope. Let's talk about wait a minute moments, and I'll kick us off. Richie, we're wondering why everything was so dark. That's because the CGI in this show is some of the worst CGI I have ever seen in my goddamn life.
Can you point to some examples? Because I personally, I have a deep dislike for Marvel movies and stuff like that. I think there's just so many of them that they're all like pretty nameless and worthless at this point. I don't know what good CGI looks like, and that's like, yeah, I feel like that's the
question.
pinnacle.
So my example is, so you were asking, like, why was it so dark in that final scene? That's because darker conditions allow for CGI to look more passable because you don't have to deal with lighting and shadows and all of that sort of stuff.
Okay.
But also, like, the best example would be, look at the wolves that they use. Like, this show requires a gigantic budget if it is going to be done to the tops of the top, right?
I think I saw season 1 cost them $71 million to make.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And like, if you think about the idea of
and that's
how
just
much,
the flights to Australia.
Yeah. If you think about how much I think when we talked about the pilot for 911, it cost like $10 million just to make that single pilot, right? That's
There
a lot
were
of money.
snakes.
Doing disaster scenes, doing disaster porn, as we like to call it, is like, it costs a lot of money. So when you look at that set of like, we're in prehistoric LA, here's everything that landed. And I was just like, okay, cool. So this looks like trash. Like, if you want to look at a good example of what things falling from the sky look like, go and watch the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds, where they have that suburban neighborhood just destroyed by a jet plane.
Dude,
like
that moment where they pan out to like the scene of like everyone waking up or like convening on everything, I was like, oh, this is such a great stop on the Universal tour.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly what I thought. So like, for me, if you want to invest in this, and we'll talk a little bit about how they advertise the show, prove it. Put your money where your fucking mouth is.
Yeah.
$70 million isn't anything to shrug at, but
Sure.
It's also not as much as this show needed. I'm curious from you two.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go because, Jeff, my ties to yours. You're going to talk about everything in the hole with the camera work, and I'm going to talk about above the hole with the camera work, because every single scene that was filmed.
Welcome to Above the Hole, our new podcast.
Yeah.
That's our new golfing and CGI podcast.
Yeah, Jeff's disaster porn showed hole. Everything above here, everything in real world LA looks like a video game cutscene. And I just wanted to hit X and skip past it so badly.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
there's this lens flare on the top of the screen the entire time. Everything is so motion soothed and like motion smooth that it looks CGI, even though the real people. It looked like, like when you try to take a photo on portrait mode and you're too close, so like the thing that's focused is really clear and everything else around it is super blurry. That's how every single close-up was shot, where you have a little bit of focus. Everything behind them is totally blurred out, and there's this lens flare at the top of the screen the entire time.
How else are you supposed to know it's the daytime?
Michael Bay.
There's no other way to know.
Secretly, Michael Bay was the the photographer, the lead photographer on this.
Screams Transformers movies. Like this entire, and I will say, for as like apparently comparatively bad as the CGI is supposed to be, I put in bold letters in my notes, the Peterson Auto Museum falling apart looks pretty fucking sick. I'm like, damn, this is like a really cool and such a weird design to fall apart. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Question for both of you. Would you watch more of this show if Optimus Prime shows up in episode 2?
Yeah, they might as well.
Yes.
They might as well. Hey, this bus that we're rescuing Josh in, it's going to turn into a human being.
Oh my God. Rich, I'm curious, any wait a minute moments for you in this show?
Yeah, there was one near the end where Josh is like trying to recover from his like wolf wound. That was a hard thing to do. I'm going to start using that as a vocal warm-up. His mom is like, hey, do you remember when you were 5 or in 5th grade or something like that, and you broke your arm?
Yeah.
And they're like, you remember how we had to wait at the hospital for 4 hours to see a doctor after you broke your arm? America is broken, people. We need to figure this healthcare thing out. We need some fucking universal healthcare. There is no way that we should be paying for a doctor visit that take 4 hours for like a pretty catastrophic injury. I would say you're in severe pain. Anyways, vote for me in the upcoming election. I'm running against Karen Bass.
Really quick, going back to the Transformers thing. I'm
now
stuck.
Hell yeah. I got him to go on my tangent.
If there's anything we're going to talk about in this podcast, it's going to be healthcare reform and Transformers.
This is truly like, was it like the black cat Fred, golden retriever Fred TikTok meme right now? No, but I just keep imagining the car that had all the heroin in the trunk turning into a Transformer, and it's it's just like a sketchy drug dealer Transformer. Like, hey man, like I got what you need. I got what you need. Like Optimus, like I'm good, man. I'll pay you back. I'm good.
Oh, you want a gacked out Transformer?
I'm just thinking of if you guys remember Beast Wars, which was like the Transformers, but everyone was prehistoric and animals
and on heroin.
Fucking dope. No, unfortunately, that was not included. Might have been even better. Optimus
Prime was like a big gorilla in that one, right?
Yeah, he was like an ape, and then it was great. It was 10 out of 10.
Yeah, they made a movie out this summer. Go check it out.
I'm not going to recommend that, but Max did. So let's talk about our in-flight question. We got an in-flight question about this show, and it was very simply, where would you want a magic pit to transform you and 100 strangers? Go!
Ooh. Oh, I'm going to reverse Jeff's answer, and I'm like, I want to fall through and end up in a McDonald's play place.
Yeah, I think Max, my answer works for both. Midwest State Fair.
Yeah, Rich, you stole my answer, so... I genuinely was trying to think about this as like, where would be the funniest place for it to be? I definitely would say like, now the dangerous answer would be a wave pool, because I don't know if everyone knows how to swim, right? But that would also be like low key pretty funny. Softer landing than the ground after 300 feet. But yeah, no, I don't know.
You fall through and end up in the universe and lost?
Oh my God. Yeah, no. Well,
double mystery.
Thank you for that in-flight question, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about the history of this show. So, This show had 2 seasons and
third is in
24
development.
episodes, and the 3rd season is set to premiere upon the new year. So be on the watch out for that if you are a big La Brea head.
Yeah, we've really sold this series so far.
As far as viewership goes, this is something. So the show got a fairly decent marketing budget because if you guys remember, something happened in 2020 and the Olympics got delayed by a year. So during the Olympics in 2021, a lot of budget by NBC was used to promote this show specifically as the next big new thing. And with all of that hard work and effort, 6.37 million viewers showed up for the premiere in late September of 2021. To give you an idea of how things are going, the season 2 finale only got 1.77 million viewers, and it is in a primetime slot.
Are we talking about like day after and stuff like that though, or because I feel like people just don't watch these shows live like that. I feel like when we do these modern shows, like I'm not to like rate on your parade, but it's harder to get an idea of like what the ratings are on like a current show.
Well, they watched the first episode live. I think that's the comparison thing. Like if there's that many people who like continue on or who actually like sit through it live, I think you expect the same amount to like watch it live again.
That's
I think
fair,
that's
yeah.
I mean, also like Geoff, would you say these numbers fell through a bit of a pit over these last 2 seasons?
Yeah, for sure, a little bit. The big thing for me is I like to compare, and there's the idea of like live versus live, right? As opposed to live versus overall. The master of this is HBO. HBO does a really good job of giving you their entire viewership number. Netflix gives you the idea of people who watch 30 seconds of a show and count it as, oh my goodness, they viewed it because we started the video before they even pressed go.
Yeah, I guess my idea of how we get these ratings is a little prehistoric.
Yeah, just fuck you. Another thing that like almost gives me the idea that this show does have some form of audience is the number of different countries that they actually show it in. It's shown in the US, but it's also shown in Australia, which makes complete sense, Canada, Germany, Italy, as well as the majority of the UK. So yeah, that's great. What if I told you this show
in Australia they call it La Brea?
God damn it.
Nope.
In Italy, it's like, what is this La Brea?
So this show does have some form of awards. While all jokes aside, the show has received
awards.
They won one.
So it's received 3 nominations for awards that we very well know, like the People's Choice Awards, as well as the Saturn Awards, for variations on Best Sci-Fi Show or Feature. But the one that actually I will give them credit for is they were awarded the Reframe Stamp, which, if you are not familiar with, it is for
most CGI.
Rich, you're going to regret that joke. It's rewarded for accomplishing gender balanced and diverse hiring on set and within show production. So making sure that there's a 50-50 balance as far as male to female executives, diversity in casting, all of these sort of things. It's actually really, really cool. So like, good on them. That's something that you don't see a lot. And it's the first time we've ever talked about that on this show. So just to give you an idea of how hard of an accomplishment that is.
We've normally talked about
fun.
Higher prestige awards, I will say, than equity in casting.
Yeah, but as we move forward in a world where we would like to consider equity for all things, I would like to call that out. That's really all the history of the show, right? It's not completed. Tune in for the next season. I think it premieres on January 9th of 2024. This is not me promoting the show. This is just me giving you facts that I know. But Rich, it is now time for your game of the week.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. This one's just for Geoff. because it's all about La Brea,
the
area that this takes place in. And I did want to ask, this is not part of the game of the week, but if you guys had to guess, and I read ahead a little bit for this because I was trying to think of like, this seems one of those shows that goes in such a bonkers direction, like Riverdale does. It actually it doesn't go so crazy compared to the pilot. Like, it doesn't like jump the shark in the way that Riverdale does, but because the pilot's insane. What year what age do you think they land in this upside down version of Los Angeles?
10,000 BC.
It is 10,000 BC.
Oh, good for you, Max. That's
Did you read ahead?
No, but I know there was a movie that was called 10,000 BC that had a saber-toothed tiger in it.
What was the one that just came out with Adam Driver that like was
65?
There we go, because it was 65 million years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So,
all right,
Rich,
game of the
shoot
week.
me your questions. Let's see if I learned anything from you two.
Game of the week. This is all about the mid Wilshire area in which this place takes which this all takes place. The first question is the area in which the La Brea pilot takes place, aside from the Upside Down universe, of course, is called the Miracle Mile. Before construction, the area was what? All tar pit, dairy farms, a racetrack, or palm tree groves.
Tar pit would be fun, right? I would just love that idea if there was just tar pits, because I know LA is a swamp, technically. But I am going to say that it was just palm trees.
It was dairy farms. It was dairy and bean farms before they built that area up. They built it as a way to like essentially try to find a different shopping district from downtown. All right, the Peterson.
100 years ago, we had dairy farms, and now everyone wants almond milk in their Erewhon smoothie.
How far we've collapsed. The Peterson Auto Museum boasts all but which famous car? The Batmobile from Batman Returns, a DeLorean, the VW Beetle from Herbie Fully Loaded, the Pope-mobile, Bonnie and Clyde's fatal getaway car, or a Mercedes owned by Saddam Hussein.
You wouldn't have included that last one if it wasn't there.
I'm trying to remember because I went there like a year ago to check out a James Bond exhibit they had with like all like cars,
all
and
the Aston Martins
and stuff. I want to say Pope-mobile.
Yeah, I want to say Pope-mobile too. I think that's the Smithsonian.
They do not have a Bonnie and Clyde's fatal getaway car. They have the 1988 Cadillac that was used as the Pope-mobile. I think it was for when the Pope famously visited Dodger Stadium.
He visited? Oh, yeah. Very cool.
I do also have to reiterate, they have a life-size replica of Lightning
McQueen. Ka-chow.
Ka-chow indeed.
All right, last question is, don't want to be around this during a sinkhole. This art exhibit called Levitated Mass is in the back pathway of the LA County Museum of Art on Wilshire. Max, you can't answer this because we've been there. The art exhibit is a seemingly floating what? A, giant boulder, B, model of Earth, C, a big butt, or D, a stone elephant.
Let's go with, I'm thinking of the Roadrunner. Let's just go with a boulder.
It is a 380-ton boulder that is lifted up with like invisible supports inside of it, so it looks like it's just kind of hanging out there.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's really
fun.
I'll have to see it next time I visit.
Support the arts. Go to LACMA. But yeah, thanks for playing the La Brea History Game of the Week.
Well, boys, it is time to wrap up as our flight comes to a land, and two simple questions for each of you. One, based off of this pilot, would you continue watching La Brea? It's streaming. Maybe you can catch up during the holiday season to watch the season finale or the finale of the show. With that being also said, do you think that there should be a final season of this show taking up space on NBC's primetime package? And Rich, I'm going to start with you.
I would not watch any more of La Brea, but catch Max and my new pilot coming soon to Quibi, Park La Brea. It's a wonderful story about a kid's journey to Los Angeles living with a quirky roommate. And then if I would I don't know anyone that watches this. If I did, I'd probably have a different answer. But I feel like it's, from what I've seen so far, it's going to be too much like Lost for me to even remotely try to buy into this. What about you, Max?
Max, what about you? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a no for me on why to continue watching. It needs to be at least 25% dumber and less self-serious for me to want to keep going. Like it needs to have jumped
does
the
that
shark.
kid stay high?
Yeah, like I need to have jumped the shark.
He's permanently high.
In,
He's just
because yeah, it's like 911 does that, where it's so stupid that I need to see what happens next. This doesn't hit that for me. Do I think that it needs to reach its conclusion? Honestly, no. They've had 2 seasons to really build up a big audience, and it feels like it's in decline. And so I think it's just, I don't know, put that budget towards other things. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah, and for myself, I could see why people watch this show, right? And I see it as it fills that void or that pit, let's say, of the missing of Lost, right? If you liked Lost, you like the idea of a mystery. Where are people?
Rewatch Lost.
Them? Yeah, I was literally about to say there's a great show called Lost. There's also this great show called Land of the Lost that you could also potentially
but do
watch.
not watch the Will Ferrell film adaptation. Make sure to watch the original TV series.
With that being said, as far as the show having a final season, we've made it, right? Like I like when someone knows that something is finished, right? Or that something has an end. I always applaud people on not trying to go 10 seasons.
Yeah, you can't fire me because I quit.
And you know what? 3 seasons of the show, good for them for making it that long. Enjoy your last season. Hopefully you have fun with it. And then let it die. Don't bring it back. Just, watch Lost. With that all being said, and as our flight is to a land, I would love for folks to be able to find you gentlemen. And Max, why don't you start so people can send you their show name suggestions for this show?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich and on Twitter at Oh No. You can catch me taking selfies at Lightning McQueen at the Peterson Auto Museum and on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
Oh, God. You can find me right around town with a trunk full of heroin. You can also find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. You can find original sketch comedy from Max and I on TikTok at Dadwagon Comedy.
And you can find me trying to find my dad on Find My Friends. You can also find... Right. You can find me on social media at RunJeffRun. You can find the TV Pilots License anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Pilots License. If you have a question about the show, maybe a suggestion for the next episode that we do, make sure to shoot us an email at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com. Or if you have an in-flight question, give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for our Instagram for sneak previews of some of the episodes we have coming up, including next week our year in review or our memorial of some of the shows that we lost. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then, where are we? And more importantly, when are we?
God damn it.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah.